What's going on, party people? We are back again, and the Ripperverse has launched Isom number 2. Now, those who are listening to me now, I would say probably the majority, most of my audience actually comes from the review I did of Isom number 1. My numbers shot up dramatically. I cover a lot of things. I cover some news topics, started getting into more geek stuff, and I will say the videos I did on the Ripperverse, parallel to none. I think my most viewed video on this channel, I think something like 6,000 views, was me covering Isom number 1, and I get it. To me, this is what that tells me. There's nothing innately great about my content, but people are so excited about the Ripperverse that when it launched, I can tell you, just looking at my numbers and looking at my metrics, people were looking for anything, any video covering anything that had anything to do with the Ripperverse. And I get it. In my humble opinion, the book is that good. It is not the perfect book. It did not get everything right out the gate. But here's what I think Ripperverse got right the first time. And I don't think there's no cause for me to think that it will be any different this next time around. Here's what the Ripperverse got right. Service to the fans. And I think the fact that Eric July himself is a fan of comic books, which look, most comic book creators started out as fans of comic books. Sometimes I think what happens at some point, you lose the perspective of a fan and you believe you have ascended to greater knowledge. Now, look, maybe you understand some things about the industry that most fans don't understand, but people like what they like. I put out content. I understand that when I put out videos about the Ripperverse, those videos do the best, hands down. Put a thumbnail out. If that thumbnail has Isom on the thumbnail, it's probably going to get a decent amount of views, maybe 100, maybe a couple hundred, which for me, that's decent because not many of my videos really get viewed like that. And I understand that's what people want to see. If it would be nice to grow this channel, and here's what I understand. I want to cover the content that I enjoy covering. I enjoy geek culture. I enjoy news. I enjoy history. I enjoy politics. So I'm going to cover all of those things. But if I wanted my content to grow exponentially, I'm almost positive I could just cover the Ripperverse every day, just going back and forth, covering things ad nauseum. And my video, I mean, it get old at some point, in my humble opinion, because it's a new company. There's only so much you could cover. But anyway, I digress. People are excited about this. I'm an 80s baby. I was born in 1979. I know I'm dating myself. I've been reading comic books since 1990, I want to say, is the first comic book I owned, 90 or 91. This was right at around the time Jim Lee came on the scene and just dominated comic books. His art, to me, in my humble opinion, still to this day, one of the best comic book artists of all times. Michael Jordan of comic books. Funny how everything is compared to Michael Jordan, right? It's hilarious. But I truly believe Jim Lee is like the Michael Jordan of comic books. Now, that's subjective. I understand that. People have artists that they like more than Jim Lee. I get it. Art is a subjective thing. You like what you like. But the reason I bring up being an 80s baby, is I remember the launch of X-Men with Jim Lee penciling the comic book. And this was something else. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that issue number 1 of X-Men, and I think the subsequent issues, I could be mistaken, maybe it's just number 1, sold something like 16 million copies. I don't know. I don't remember offhand if it's the top selling comic book of all time. I believe it might be. The excitement was in the air. So much so, Jim Lee, who I'm trying to think of the names that started Image Comics. Jim Lee, Brett Booth, I believe, Todd McFarlane. No, it wasn't Mark Silverstreet. Was it Mark Silverstreet? I think it was Mark Silverstreet. Bunch of people that were drawing for Marvel went off and started their own comic book company, Image Comics. Excitement was in the air. Covered this before on another video, so I'm not going to go in depth talking about that. I bring this up because my first video, people watched, people really enjoyed me talking about the Rippaverse, and I do not think that is an accident. People are eager for something that is good. Eric July with Rippaverse Comics, he is servicing the fans. People complain with that first book that there wasn't enough information covered. I disagree. I think Eric July understood exactly what he was doing, and I think he understood exactly what the fans are looking for. If you go watch a sci-fi series, if you tune into episode 1 and you find out everything, you find out who did it, you find out how it happened, you find out pretty much how the plot is going to end. Are you coming back? You already know everything. Sure, you might still be a little excited because the show might be enjoyable to watch, but you already know what's going to happen. You're not really going to come back like that. And I heard people complain that there wasn't enough in Isom #1. In my humble opinion, that is a silly complaint. You were given just enough to have a taste, just enough to know, okay, I like this character, just enough to know, okay, this story can really go somewhere, but you were kind of left, with some things dangling. And I think that generated even more interest. And I think we see that in this Isom #2 campaign. Now, I want to go to Rippaverse.com website and let's catch up on what's going on with this Isom campaign. All right, so Isom #2 pre-order. Now, you might not be able to see. Let me shorten my screen so you can see this, this other part of the screen. Let's get the whole screen on there. Okay, we're good now. So cover A sold 6,480 copies. Cover B, 7,026 copies. Cover C, 2,560 copies. It's a big deal. This is an independent comic creator. To me, that's a big deal. Now, these, they don't sound like crazy numbers, but think about this. This one comic book has generated $1.15 million. One comic book. Now, he's going to put out 2 more comic books, I believe, this year. Let me see. I think if you go back to, maybe it's on the homepage. Yeah, I think it's on the homepage. Let me see, Rippaverse.com. Okay, so he has, now these are not small names. The Saska sisters, they're going to work on Yaira #1. I think this is going to be a good book. Maybe we have even more characters introduced in this book. And that's what you have to remember, is he's building a whole comic book universe from scratch. He doesn't have, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years in. This is brand new, barely 1 year old. And he has Chuck Dixon working on Alpha Core #1. These are not small names. This is not a small thing. People might try to write him off as though this is not a big deal. Trust me, this is a big deal. I understand some people don't like Eric July's beliefs on different issues, and this is where I differ from most people in this regard. Now, I personally have been following Eric July because of his commentary across comic books, politics, and other things for a few years now. And I remember him loosely mentioning, wanting to start a comic book company. And I was like, that'd be interesting. I wonder who he'd be working with. Maybe he knows somebody that has a story. But to find out that this is his brainchild, this is really good. And I'm sure, I don't know how much of it is all him and how much of it is collaborative, but I think this is his brainchild. And this is really exciting for people who just enjoy comic books. I went on that other tangent just to say, you don't have to agree with everything a person says to enjoy something they put out. There might be some dude who's a jerk that just so happens to produce a great movie. He can be a jerk and his movie can be great. Those two things can exist at the same time. But we live in this day and this age where we believe, well, because this person said this thing, now I can't like anything they do. And I think that works to the detriment of art. Artists typically are strange. So there's bound to be something about an artist you don't like. There's bound to be something they do you don't agree with. They're going to say something. They're going to endorse something. There's going to be something that's just going to have you like, oh man, why do you have to do this? What I like about Eric July is he has made it known that, look, I have my beliefs, but I'm not going to let those beliefs turn these comic books into a preaching session whereby I shove what I think down your throat. Now, I'm a believer, right? If I created a comic book based on the Bible, then you would understand, okay, so there's going to be some biblical things in here. And if I just created a general comic book, I think most people would understand there's some things that are probably not going to be in the comic book, but my goal would be to create a good comic book. Now, your values shine through, right? What you believe to your core shines through. But I understand that he's making an effort not to make the Rippaverse a preaching session for his ideas to be shoved down your throat. He's just creating good storylines around a good comic book. And I think this excitement, and I believe his sales from this proves it. Look, I understand he had some problems with the website when Isom #2 campaign launched. I don't blame him for that. I know he holds his team to high standards, which any CEO, boss, creator should. But I think the excitement for just good content, he's at the right place at the right time. I think the excitement for good content is so real, is so fervent that it would not matter how much he worked on this website on the back end. I think it will crash every time he releases a book. Now, maybe, he gets this resolved during the next launch. But look, if he doesn't, I'm not surprised. To me, this just shows the people are so excited. Look at, some of these big entities that have some huge thing going on, and a lot of people flood their website and the website crashes because it just can't handle the traffic. I think Eric July is garnering a lot of traffic. And I think there's people that don't like him personally, but they're still probably going and taking note and probably looking like, this dude is making waves. This is not a fluke. Isom #2 in 24 hours. Look, the site went down. I think he said it was about 20 hours. So when you look at the earnings, that's really a 24-hour period as far as earnings. I think he might reach $3 million again. I think most of the people who bought the first time, look, some people bought the book and didn't like it. Nobody's going to like everything. You're not going to get everybody to like something you do. There'll be somebody who doesn't like it. But I think a lot of people are returning because they really and thoroughly enjoyed a book. So I think it's possible for him to reach that $3 million mark again. Maybe he falls just a little short, or maybe he reaches like just that 3 million. I think the first campaign, let me see, because I can't remember. I think the first campaign reached something like, 3.7 million. Maybe he gets back there. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Looks like 42,000 total purchases. Now that's total purchases. I don't know how many comics were sold exactly, because I think those purchases encompass many things, including some of the other merch other than the comic book. So here's what's interesting. I think Eric July is doing a magnificent job of just offering things that really service the fans. So here, he released a trailer for the release of Isom #2. Let's watch this. Rippaverse Studios. This dude is making moves, man. He is making moves. I appreciate what he's doing. As a geek, I appreciate these things.
Time is a fascinating.
Okay, so let me start off by saying this. If you grew up watching the Batman animated series, this animation kind of gives me that feel. It's not too overly detailed, just enough detail to keep you captivated and just pull you in with the enjoyment and the excitement. That's kind of the feel I got. Kind of, like I said, it feels like Batman animated series.
Thing. We often like to think of it as something that just is.
The narration is great. I love the narration. This is good stuff. This is really good stuff. It's got me excited. I want to see an entire Isom cartoon. I'd watch it.
So if I'm helping you, I have one condition.
Yeah. No more quitting.
Time is a gift, Isom. What are you gonna do with yours?
That was thrilling. For a first showing new comic book to release something like that, in my humble opinion, that tells me that this is a person that truly understands the medium of comic books and just geekdom in general. And he wants to offer his fans something that they will definitely 100% enjoy. And I appreciate that. I think this is going to do good things. So I bought cover A and cover B of Isom #2, and I also bought another copy of Isom #1. Now, what I would like to do, now look, I have a regular job, so I don't have a bunch of time to make and produce YouTube videos. I would like to, if my channel, I say this, if my channel grew to the point where it was actually bringing revenue, like I could build something off of this, then I would definitely devote, I'd forego the day job and definitely devote time into making content. Because what I would like to do, I would like to take and this is the reason I bought 2 copies of Isom #2. I would like to keep one copy as pristine as possible. I didn't buy the graded copies. I collect because I enjoy reading comic books, not necessarily for the sake of, collecting and selling or having this super expensive thing. I understand why people do, but I would like to take some detailed photos of the different panels of Isom #1 and 2 and kind of do a narration style video, just going over what has happened, some of my theories, some other people's theories, kind of in the same vein as like Comics Explained and Comic Story. And now look, those dudes are, as far as the content they put out, they're magnificent. I'm not going to be anywhere near what they're doing, at least now. Not that I couldn't get there, but man, that takes a lot of time. I definitely do not have the time for that. Like I said, if this was my only thing, making YouTube videos, I might be able to do that. But that's what I would like to do. I understand a lot of you migrated to my channel because of my coverage of Isom. And I think you are as excited about this new venture as I am. I think it's a good book. There's some things that I hope they fixed from the last book, minor things here and there. I don't think the things that really would just be me being nitpicky, but things worth criticizing. Whether those things are fixed or not, I wouldn't really make a big stink of it because this is a new venture. There's going to be growing pains. And that's the thing that kind of shows me the hatred that people have, that they won't even give an inch. On a new venture, there's going to be growing pains. All of us understand that. But for some reason, people won't give Eric July and the Rippaverse that leeway. I personally will. I enjoy it. I'd like to make some more content covering the Rippaverse, and I hope to do just that as he releases more books and builds up a catalog and has, a running lore. This is new. He doesn't have 50, 60, 70 years of history. This is brand new, and I'm excited for what comes next.